We're living our truth now. Crystal, what?
Krista who?
Christadelphian?
Did you say Christian Dolphin? So are you from Philadelphia?
Welcome to the Life After Leaving podcast, an ex-Christadelphian podcast. Hey everyone. I just want to let you know that we had a minor difficulty recording, so we were disconnected at 1 hour and 24 minutes in, but we did pick up our conversation again right after that. You will also get the immersive experience of hearing Tim's hallway clock as if you were in the room with us. So please enjoy that as well, because I couldn't edit it out. Also, before we begin, please note that we'll be referencing some difficult topics, including emotional, physical, psychological, and sexual abuse, kidnapping, physical assault by family members, attempted murder-suicide, gun violence, and symptoms of PTSD. We recognize that these topics may be triggering for some people, so you may want to skip over some sections of this podcast or skip this episode if this would cause you distress to hear about these situations. However, I believe that healing often occurs when we tell and share our stories, so I hope ex-Christadelphians feel empowered by sharing our stories on this podcast, and that anyone who is struggling with trauma is seeking the support they need. Thank you. Hello, heathens, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Zinnia. Today's guest is Tim. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So today I'd like to hear your story of becoming an ex-Christadelphian. So I'd like to go through your experience as a Christadelphian, what the process of leaving looked like for you, where you're at now in life, and anything else you'd like to share with people who may be going through a similar journey. I will say this is going to be a very unique story and may bring up some difficult topics, so there'll be some disclaimers at the top of this episode. Before we get started, I always like to ask what region of the world you were in and how long it has been since you left the Christadelphians. You also mentioned that you wanted to share your full name and a little bit about your career early on. So feel free to introduce yourself now.
I'm Timothy Conway, and I'm a retired FBI supervisor. And I live in the mid-Atlantic of the United States. And I pretty much have been here most of my life.
And how long has it been since you left the Christadelphians?
About 16, 17 years ago, I left.
Okay. So let's get started with your experience being a Christadelphian. Were you born into the Christadelphians?
Yes.
And what part of them were you in? What group? The Central, Unamended?
Most of my life when I was a member, we were in the amended branch. And then after I became an adult, I joined the unamended branch because they had a chapel near our home.
Okay, that makes sense. And then did your family intentionally give you a Bible name, Timothy?
Yes. We all had biblical names in our family.
That's very common, so I'm trying to get better about asking everyone. And do you want to share some memories about being a young Christadelphian in America in the early years?
To me, it was the world I knew, and it seemed pretty normal, pretty ordinary. They were religious and cultural conservatives, and even as a child, I found the services uninspiring.
Okay, fun choice of words. So you were attending probably every Sunday then at least. Do you remember going to any other things regularly, more often than once a week maybe?
Oh, yes. We would go to Wednesday night Bible class, and we would go to the vacation Bible school. And at that time, when I was a child coming up, we would go to the Wilbraham Monson Academy in Massachusetts. And now most of that group now goes to Shippensburg.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I thought it would be Shippensburg because you were in the Mid-Atlantic area, and that was the Mid-Atlantic Bible School.
Yeah, the Wilbraham Monson Academy was a lovely private school for, I believe it was for children from wealthy families. And it was very lovely. I'm not sure why they stopped going there. I'm not sure when they started going to Shippensburg either, but they've been going for many years to Shippensburg now.
Okay. Um, are there any other stories you wanted to share before I start asking about the transition to your family going to Israel?
Well, they were longtime, multi-generational Christadelphians. My father was a convert. He converted
Ooh,
in order to
to marry.
marry my mother, but
Mm-hmm.
her family went way back to the Richmond ecclesias. You probably know there's 4 or 5 ecclesias in the Richmond area, and she
Mm-hmm.
went back to ecclesias in the Norfolk, Chesapeake, the Williamsburg area of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
There were 2 or 3 ecclesias there, and her family's roots went way back in those different ecclesias.
Yeah, and Virginia is the first place where John Thomas was really preaching and getting a foothold into that, where some of his earliest converts were. So that could potentially go back pretty far.
Yeah, all the way back, I believe, to shortly after the Civil War, or maybe even prior to it. My mother's roots went back that far.
Okay, yeah, that would have been during like the founding of
Yeah,
the earliest Christadelphian years.
yes, I believe so.
That's quite a legacy.
We thought so too.
Yeah. So you had the unique experience of being born in America, but primarily growing up in Israel. How old were you when you left the States, and around what time period was that?
I was about 12 when we went. There was a small migration of Christadelphians who went to Israel because they believed that the second advent was imminent. And different wacko groups have done that in the past. Israel's got an abundance of Christians who are all foaming at the mouth because Jesus is going to be coming momentarily, or they believe he's already there. And our group believed that he was already there and
Ooh,
living incognito, and that
with
he
like a
that
disguise, like a fake beard on.
yes, yes, and that he had not yet revealed himself, but it was going to happen any minute. And if you know Christadelphians, it's always imminent. It's always
Of
going to
course, any
happen
second. Yeah, any
any
second.
second. And this was 50 years ago. This is half a century ago, and
So
so,
he,
so,
we,
so half a
what
century
happened to
momentarily.
momentarily? 50 years. It's a blink of an eye to God, I guess. That's what they would say.
Well, they 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 actually in February of 1970, a Christadelphian by the name of Charles Hull, who died just a few years ago. He lived in Boise, Idaho, and he wrote an article. I'm holding it up here.
You have it. I
I
need a
have it.
copy. I need a copy. Tell your family to scan it and send it to me, please.
It was in Testimony magazine, which is an
Okay.
English Christadelphian magazine, and it's
Hmm.
still published. And his article is entitled "Who is This?"
I have
Meaning,
heard that they merged with the Christadelphian magazine now,
I
I
that
believe.
was almost predictable. Uh, they published several articles from him, but that article in particular very strongly indicated that Christ might already be in his kingdom, waiting to reveal himself, and that it would be moments before this would happen. And it set off this tiny stampede of zealots to head toward the motherland. Yes, and so like the Jehovah's Witnesses have done on 2 or 3 occasions, they divested themselves of their homes and their bank accounts, and
Wow, like sold everything.
they liquidated everything they owned and headed for
Wow.
the Holy Land. And
Wow.
we did not have many people try to intervene, which they should have done. But as many people predicted, it was going to be a huge disaster, and that's what it turned out to be.
Yes, you said that if we title it, we could call this episode The Descent into Madness. So this is
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
be quite a story, I can tell. And I want to pause a little bit to just dig into if there's any
sure,
more
sure, sure.
background here. Do we know who Charles Hall was? Like, I've never heard of this Christadelphian.
He, I don't know if he was born into Christadelphianism, but he did not go to
Of all
Israel.
people, he should have
Yes,
gone. He should
yes,
have been the first one.
he he did not make the pilgrimage there. He came later after people
Oh,
had settled
okay.
there, and he came because he was alarmed by what he had created. And he
Okay.
came to visit, and he was sufficiently disillusioned by what he had caused that he then left Christadelphianism and rejected
What a
it as
twist.
he rejected it as a faith and
So
denounced
he
it.
needs to come on the podcast if he's still alive. Or did you say he's already passed away?
I contacted him a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and I wanted to do a follow up with him and see if he understood the damage he had done to multiple families. And he was in his dotage, and he was like half senile. And
Oh,
I contacted his ecclesia in Boise, Idaho. I believe it was Boise,
oh
somewhere in
gosh,
Idaho.
Idaho.
And they were the ones who told me that he was beyond communicating.
Okay.
But they may have been protecting him. They may have, but they said he had left the faith.
Okay. So he had left the faith and he was much older than you. I
Oh
presume
yeah,
that
yeah,
also having
yeah.
been an adult when you were a child, so he was elderly and infirm.
Well, it's an irony, but he came over there and people were concerned about their family members who'd gone there. And he reported back to various people that everything was fine. There was no danger, that everything
I mean,
appeared normal, that we all appeared. Yeah,
oh
yeah.
no. Oh no, that was not the
Yeah.
case.
No. Oh, no. No. And I think he told them what they wanted to hear.
Oh, that's not good. That's not good. So he helped cover up some, we're going to say some really dark shenanigans.
It was deep shit, let me tell you. Yeah, it got pretty bad. We were not there long, and some of them expected that Christ would be there on the tarmac when we arrived, and that he would. Oh, they actually thought he would greet us at the airport,
Oh, okay.
and naturally he didn't show up. And
God. Okay.
then we were in a completely different environment. A month
Yes.
after we went through Laud Airport, they had the Laud Airport massacre. Like 3.5 weeks after we landed there,
Oh my God.
a terrorist went through Laud Airport and killed, I think it was a dozen people. So we missed that. And none of these people were wrapped too tightly to begin with. And the group very rapidly devolved into extreme violence and abuse and tragedy.
And we are going to discuss it. Let me ask you a few more questions. We're going
Sure,
to ease
sure.
into it. I want to make sure we've
Sure.
got some background material covered for all of our listeners, and then we are going to talk about that as much as you want today. This is going to be you telling your story. I wanted to ask a few other things. So you had mentioned a few things about what the group believed before they left. One thing that we didn't include yet that I feel like is good background material is that they said that going to Israel was going to be an ark of safety. Those were their words.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember how they presented this idea to you? And can you tell me some more about what they told you as a boy, if there was anything else besides just this Charles Hall story?
They reassured the children in the group that we would be happy there. Everything they told the people in Jonestown, Guyana. They told them, how wonderful it would be, that it would be safe to be there. And in fact, I and my siblings were we were felony kidnapped and removed from the United States without the knowledge or the consent of my father, who had divorced my. We were Yes, we were removed without his knowledge or consent, and there was a warrant for felony kidnapping at the airports in the United States in the event that my mother had ever come back. And as the leader of the group, she never came back because it would mean
Yeah,
renounce, yes, losing her chance for salvation. It would be a repudiation of what she had bought into.
there would have been a lot of consequences, actually, of her coming back. Yeah, arrest being one of them. That seems like a big one.
A lot of the people had unhappy consequences. I had a sister who died there. I had a family that came along. Their marriage ended. I have relatives who are deeply, deeply damaged by all of it. We have relatives who remain there. They remain there and are still waiting, and it's still imminent. And so when I'm around Christadelphians and they start the whole, he's coming next Tuesday.
Any day. Next
yes,
week.
it's any second.
There's a prediction for this week that we are recording that he will come back Tuesday, I think, this week. So let's see, Tim. Let's see.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. September 23rd. It's the new day.
I have heard that. That's so disturbing to me. Well, I better get my family on an airplane so we can get back over there. The whole shtick they had was that it would be in the end times an ark of safety, that they would be protected there by God, that people would die there as part of fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Yeah, the irony of that.
But that they would, this select group would be protected because God would reward them for their faith in coming there.
Yeah, that is aligned with Christadelphian teachings, that they will be protected because they're doing the Christadelphian routine every week and all of that. They've been chosen because they break bread with each other every week, kind of thing.
The adults in the group, it was really very impressive. They could quote scripture backwards. They were so good. Well, Christadelphians are often that way. There's this fixation on text, and
they love the intellectualism of it, of being like, I read it and I understand it and I study it. They try to keep it very intellectual.
Well, I didn't mind any of that. What I did mind was that the spirit of what they believed did not translate into their behavior. And we went from pillar to post and nobody worried. And the children and some of the adults were furniture that, if they got in the way, that it didn't matter. What mattered was this shining religious faith that you had to hold to it and your reward would be coming to you. Mm-hmm. And, a point I wanted to make in talking to you was that it was a combination of religious fanaticism and mental illness. There was definitely a component of mental illness, and there was also a component of pure evil. And it pains me to say it, but there was a component of pure evil in what they did and what happened to innocent people there, like Waco, Texas, with the Branch Davidians, like the people in Jonestown, good people who did not deserve it, had their lives wrecked for them.
I am absolutely not going to disagree with that. I have read some of what you've written in the past, over however many past years that you've been communicating with other ex-Christadelphians. So you've been very consistent with your story and very open with it among our community. So having already heard some of the things you went through, I absolutely cannot disagree. And we're going to go through this story. I'm going to try to pace you and prompt you as we go through it. And our listeners can listen and draw their own opinions about it as well. I will say that I try to highlight many, many different stories and backgrounds and perspectives here. And so this obviously doesn't represent every Christadelphian or ex-Christadelphian or anything like that, but this is your story and your experience, and I'm absolutely going to validate that. And we're going to hear your story today and hear it straight from you as you remember it. So I'm going to slow you down a little bit again, because I know you're ready to talk and you've been trying to share this story over and over through the years. And a lot of people are going to really really want to hear this. But I still want to talk a little bit about like going into Israel. So it's a huge transition. Did you learn Hebrew before or after arriving in Israel, for example?
The first year and a half, we were in the Israeli school system, and I went to Beit Sefer Chernohovsky, which is the Chernohovsky school, which was in Netanya, a city in Israel, north of Tel
Is that
Aviv.
where you lived?
Well, we lived several places.
Okay, so what was the first one, I
That
guess,
was
then?
that was the first place we lived was Haifa, which is a port city. It's the third largest city in Israel.
Okay.
And then we moved to Rosh Pina, which is a village near the city of Safat in the Galilee. And then we moved to Netanya. And in those intervening months, we did not go to school. And then I lived in Netanya until I fled the country with great difficulty.
So that was a long time. Okay.
And then after I left Israel, the group moved into the Gush Imonim movement. And the Gush Imonim is the radical West Bank settler movement. And they were busy colonizing the West Bank.
Yeah.
And so I luckily missed out on that part of it.
Ooh, okay. Thank you for answering that.
I got out. They wouldn't let me use the telephone to call back here to the U.S. to ask for plane fare to get out of there, and so I had to
really
go.
Were kidnapped.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Well, if you've known religious fanatics, the end justifies the means, and their goal was to keep me safe there, supposedly.
They got a twisted way of doing it. Let me tell you. Let me tell you, the methods are a little untraditional.
I had to go to a university building in Petah Tikva that was being constructed, and they had a ham radio station in part of the building, and I had to tap into the U.S. phone system using this ham radio equipment and ask my father to send me money to get out of Israel.
Oh my God. And again, we're jumping ahead, but this is an amazing story. I'm trying.
I know it beggars the belief. It beggars belief. I know. Words cannot describe what we went through, and the level of their fanaticism was impressive, really. And if Christians go there, which I don't recommend, after half a year or a year or two, a deportation van will show up to drive you to the airport.
Whoa. Wait, so they were also fleeing in the country from being deported too? Was that
yes, it was always a threat until they got permanent residency papers.
Yeah.
Then they moved from that to getting citizenship.
So living in the country illegally with your kidnapped children, fantastic idea. Look at this. Look at where we are.
When you live in that kind of world, that is your normal. And
that's all you know.
That's what appears to be mundane and ordinary to you. And they went to Moshe Dayan, who was the defense minister at the time. And he was the person they suspected might be Christ living incognito.
Ooh, what made them think he was Christ?
Well, because Mr. Hall mentions him by name in his writing.
Okay.
He pulled all of these scriptures down from the Bible, indicating that when Christ comes back, he will be the Lion of Judah. He'll be a warrior.
So he's going to be a defense minister.
Yes. So they and he tosses that name out in his writing. So they fixated on that and thought, well, maybe that is this Messiah and will inevitably reveal himself. So they actually went to his home and
I was going to ask you, did they search for Jesus themselves, like on foot? So
No. no. They
But they
figured,
thought he was Jesus, though. So they're like, let's go see
well,
him.
they went, and the security guard said, "You cannot knock on his door, but if you wait in the street, he will eventually come out, and we will allow you to approach him." So he came out of his home. They approached him. He invited them in, and they went on to very gingerly approach him with the idea that he was the Messiah. Well, as you know, the Jews are still waiting for their Messiah, and he was so flattered by that he started the paperwork for them to get legal resident status.
Oh my God! He didn't just send them straight to the loony bin.
No. I think he was flattered by the idea. He thought, "Wow, I'm going to have people here telling Israelis that I'm the undiscovered Messiah." I suspect that's what he may have thought.
We suspect. We can never know what was in his mind. I'm not going to invite him on the podcast.
Well, he was an unlikely candidate to be Jesus.
Was he very Christ-like?
No, not at all. If you know his history.
I don't. If you could give us a one-sentence summary.
He believed in violence. He was a notorious womanizer.
Just like Jesus.
So,
Just kidding. Sarcasm. Don't get mad at me.
they were so wound up that on the way back, he lived in Rishon LeZion or Petah Tikva, or one of the suburbs of Tel Aviv. On the way back to Haifa, that was when we were still living in Haifa, they saw a cedar tree on fire on the Tel Aviv-Haifa highway.
Oh, no.
And they decided that must be
Was it a sign?
A burning bush from God.
Oh, wow.
The equivalent of Moses's burning bush.
But did it talk to them? Because doesn't the bush talk to them?
Yes, it did. It didn't.
Just add some mushrooms to the equation and you'll hear something talking.
So they made a U-turn through rush hour traffic, and they got out and ran over to this burning tree. Somebody had thrown a cigarette out of their car, and they got down
it's kind of arid there, isn't it?
Yes, it's very dry.
Yeah, so flammable is what dry also coincides with.
So they prayed to the tree. They prayed. Got down on their knees and began praying to the tree.
I'm picturing them bowing, like all the images of like people bowing to Nebuchadnezzar and stuff.
Well, I can laugh now. I'm able to laugh about it now. But there was a lot of behavior like that behavior, and
very extreme.
I was appalled even as a child and acutely embarrassed, and I thought, we are in a real pickle here.
Yeah, they're looking. They're like dissociated. They're just seeing what they want to see. It's just interesting to hear how detached they were from reality, where they're creating their own reality and whatever they saw.
That's it. Yeah. Everything was interpreted through the prism of prophecy and the Christadelphian belief in the second advent. And all of that was filtered through this religious worldview.
But it kind of feels like, you know how you take the little microscope and you put it like the sun through it and it burns up the little ants? You've seen like that kind of thing. That's what it feels like is happening, is like the Christadelphian beliefs are like the lens that it's going through. And they're like, let's put it on the sun. Let's just amp this up. And then it feels like you're the little ant underneath who gets burned by the layers of what was going on around you in your environment, with both of those things coming together.
Oh, definitely. Some of the scariest moments there would occur when they would have an epiphany and somebody would say, "I think this has all been a terrible mistake." And that would rock our world. I mean, it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? They've burnt all our bridges and we're stranded here. And are they going to turn on the gas, which actually happened a few times? There were attempts at I never stutter.
Mass suicide, was it?
Yes, there were attempts at group suicides.
That's kind of like Sylvia Plath turned on the oven. So that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. I do not stutter normally. I only stutter when I talk about my childhood
That's okay.
in
PTSD is fine.
Christadelphians.
It's fine. This is some dark stuff I know we're getting into.
I
It's
normally
okay.
don't have a stutter at all, but that would be like a wake up moment, and you'd think, now what are they going to do? What will happen now?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and when I came back to the United States for 20 years, I had intense free floating anxiety, and then
Understandable.
and I didn't feel safe in any way. And I
No, no.
had
I would be shocked if you did, to be quite honest.
and I would sit in a bus stop, and some old lady would walk up and sit down and talk to me, and I would have this extreme reaction as if she was Jack the Ripper. It was totally illogical, except in retrospect,
Except
I can.
you're always around danger.
Yes. So
Everyone around you.
the fight or flight instinct is always going off on you.
Yes.
And I had for 20 years a sense of extreme rage, which I didn't comprehend. But it was from that. I mean, all of that fed into it and created it. And when I left them, and they tried to prevent me from leaving,
Of course.
and dumped my luggage all over the home we were living in, tried to get the taxi driver to drive away without me. But when I left, I told myself I will never, in the rest of my life, stand in the presence of some of these people. And I never did. I've not seen my mother in half a century.
Yes. And we've said we're actually pretty much from this point on just not even call her your mother because of her behavior. So we said we would be comfortable just calling her C, the letter C.
Yes.
So if
yes.
you want to use that going forward, I'll just add that in for our listeners, because calling her mother is, we're going to learn. I'm going to, prompt you some more questions, and we'll get talking about more things.
Sure.
Really isn't the most appropriate term for her.
Yeah. In fact, that's pretty much what we call her.
Okay.
But even as a child, my siblings, I and one other sibling stopped calling her mom or mother. She's never been anybody's mother or grandmother or wife or sibling. It's her entire identity is totally wrapped up in this identity as a teacher and a prophet and a zealot. That's her entire identity.
Mm-hmm.
And how that happens, I don't know, but it does happen. It does happen to some people.
Yes, unfortunately. So can I ask you some questions? This would have been like the 1970s, right?
Yes.
When you had arrived in Israel. I wanted to ask, what was the ecclesia like? Was there a formal ecclesia, and how many members would that have been meeting at that time?
Well, the ecclesia we came out of here in the U.S., the odd thing about that was that some of them were aware of what was about to happen, and they did not intervene. Okay. And when we came drifting back like refugees, dressed in rags, and some of us underweight, there were very few questions about what we'd been through. Or
I'm going to ask you specifically about that again later in the episode too.
Sure. There is an ecclesia in Israel. It's located in Tel Aviv. It's mostly Eastern European Jewish people who've converted to Christadelphianism as a result of missionary efforts. We had nothing to do. We had nothing to do with them.
Really?
We had. I don't know why.
You guys were just totally independent of the group that was already there?
There were other people, Christadelphians, who had gone there, believe it or not, independent of our group. And one was, I don't want to give too much information, one was a single woman from Missouri who rejected Christianity in order to convert to Judaism to marry an Israeli. And she was in our orbit. We were a large blended family, There was
Hmm.
another family from the Rocky Mountain area that came over. There was a elderly couple that was loosely associated with the Richmond ecclesias in central Virginia.
Okay.
Uh,
So
and
there were
so
some Americans over there.
they were all Americans, pretty much. There were not Christadelphians from other countries. They were all there. There
uh,
were
all these
there were
crazy Americans, huh?
well, there were Americans from other denominations too, who
Huh.
came there for similar reasons, who thought
Hmm.
similar goofy
Yeah.
stuff. And we would encounter them, and there would be communication, and they were generally very rigid in their thinking too.
Hmm.
Uh,
So did you have a formal meeting on Sundays where you went through the whole service and someone was giving an exhortation and things like
no,
that?
no, 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 no. My mother would do the breaking of the bread. She
A
would,
woman?
yes, oh yes, oh yes.
Oh,
The whole thing revolved.
oh.
It all revolved around her. And it
This
still
feels like a
does.
narcissist fever
It
dream.
it still revolves around her, and
Huh. This
she
is like a mini cult. This is wild.
ah, uh, it was surreal in ways that you cannot imagine.
Yeah. No, tell me more.
I've always wondered how anybody becomes that disconnected from reality, but it does happen, as
I-
we know.
I'm also shocked at how disconnected she was from the traditional Christadelphian uh everything. I don't have the word because there's so many things, but she stepped out of a traditional Christadelphian role. I will say leading services, discarding the Christadelphian process, all of the like ecclesial guide stuff that Robert Roberts set up with how ecclesia is to operate, having brothers in different positions, having the services handle, go a certain way, having conflict resolved a certain way. Like it sounds like so many things that made it Christadelphian were thrown to the side, and then the doctrine was kind of pushed to the extreme too. There's a lot happening here, it sounds like.
That would describe it
Yeah.
pretty well. Now, in
Okay.
terms of doctrine, she was on board with everything.
Did she ever add anything to the doctrine or highlight things differently? Did she
Well,
do anything different?
the notion of Israel being an ark of safety is absurd. I mean, all you've
Hmm.
got to do is turn on the TV. She also felt it was okay for my siblings to do military duty.
Well, that
And
was one of my questions for you is that Israel, it's my understanding that every Israeli citizen, like when they come of age, has to serve in the military for a certain
yeah,
amount of time. It's,
yeah,
mandatory, just like Australia's mandatory voting, it's mandatory military service. So
yeah,
was that an
they all
option for
did.
you? Was that mandatory
No,
for you as an immigrant?
I fled before. They tried to induct me into the army, and men and women have to do military duty. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't cooperate, and they began sending me notices printed in red ink.
So that the state, like the country or whatever the like local government was sending you these letters?
Their federal government, if that's the
Federal
right term,
government?
was
Okay.
sending me notices, and then when I didn't respond to them, they began sending them with capital letters and red 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 ink, and
Oh, yeah.
so that was one reason to get out of there. Now, one of
Yeah.
my sisters did agricultural duty on kibbutz Derot.
That's part of military?
Well, you had the option,
Oh, is this like a substitution?
a substitution, like conscientious objector status.
Okay.
But she wasn't big on that. She just thought the appeal of working on this kibbutz was attractive, and it was lovely. I mean, I went to visit
Yeah.
her, and it was a beautiful village in these hand planted forests that had been
Wow.
planted in the Negev. And
Okay.
she was a shepherdess, and she would shepherd these
What?
huge flocks of sheep.
Okay, she sounds like the real Jesus, actually, compared to her.
So
It's just me leading my flocks.
it was lovely. I mean,
Mhm.
if all communism was like that, I'd be a communist, because it was
Yeah,
they had
that
a
wasn't so
commun
bad.
it was lovely. It had a communal dining hall, and You'd
Yeah.
eat the meals with the people who lived in the village, and you'd
Okay.
watch movies at night, and then you'd pick apples during the day, and it was beautiful. I mean,
Yeah, I would rather
uh,
do that over murdering people. That sounds
well,
like the better option.
my brother, up until just a few months ago, was even at the age of 71, was doing reserve duty,
Holy
and
crap.
he's been all involved in the Gaza massacres and suppressing the native-born Palestinians with
Hmm.
the butt of a rifle. And
Oof.
I,
At
I,
71 too. My goodness.
well, it's optional. He doesn't have to, but he enjoys
He
doing it.
wants to.
He
Yeah, he
wants to do
wants to
it.
be in the military.
He
Okay.
wants to do it, and he has bought into all of that thinking, lock, stock, and barrel. And he
Hmm.
has done border duty when they weren't at war. And
Hmm.
I talked to him some about that. I don't see much of them. I'm very carefully limit contact with any of the group over there because
Hmm.
frankly they scare me. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, don't come for me either. What the fuck?
so
I'm a
I
little
asked him,
nervous
well,
about someone who's like a trained killer for 5 decades being like, who's this girl? Ugh.
he he did border duty when they weren't at war, and that was they do like a month out of the year as reserve duty. At his age, it's voluntary. And
Mhm.
I said, well, what is that like? He said, well, he would usually be stationed on the Lebanon Israeli border, and he
Okay.
said we apprehend people who try and get over the border. And I said, well, what do you mean you apprehend them? He said, well, we shoot them. I said,
Yeah, I was
well,
like, did he put cuffs on him or did he just start
no, they
shooting?
shoot.
That's what I
And
was picturing. That
and I said,
sounds.
well, are they terrorists? And he said, some of them are just farmers trying to get to their olive groves. And I said, and
Ooh.
you're shooting these farmers? And
Knowing
he
that they're innocent farmers trying to.
knowing. And so I told him, you have blood on your hands to be involved in such a thing. You have blood all over you to do that. And he got violent with me. And then after that happened, I told my family we will not meet with them anywhere except in public places after that because I cannot. Yeah, it's just mind boggling.
Clearly, Jesus waiting for him.
Bullets for Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably
yeah.
what they put on the bullets themselves. This is for Jesus. Oh my
Well, there
God.
were
Yeah,
others. There were other crazy people there. There was a large group of Brownomites. If you've ever heard of them,
I'm not even
Brownomites.
familiar with the term. No.
And he
Mm-hmm.
married one of them, and they're Protestant fanatics from mostly like Arizona and Colorado. They're like Mennonites or Amish. They have the long dresses and
Oh.
the head coverings.
Oh gosh, like the little bonnets. Okay.
Yes, but they're totally crazy, and there's lots of little groups over there like that. And
Yeah, yeah, that
the
makes sense.
amazing thing is that a bigger number of them hasn't been deported out of there. Uh, that's
Yeah,
the amazing thing.
yeah. It feels like America's Idaho.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
just type in Idaho and extremist into any search engine, and you'll know what I mean.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. And they have their Bible names like Timothy or Matthew or Luke, and then they have
Uh-huh.
these like uber biblical names like
Like Hebrew names or something
yeah, yeah,
thrown in
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we love the Hebrew names. That's so
yeah, yeah.
Christadelphian.
Ah,
I don't know, maybe Jesus wanted the Hebrew names.
the funny thing, as you know, when you go against all of that stuff, you become the crazy one. You
Yes.
become you're the
If you go
problem.
look at any psychologist who works with trauma and stuff, they'll talk about the black sheep and how the family will always turn on the black sheep once they actually start speaking about the dysfunction of the family. And they
Boy, do
usually,
they.
yeah, suffer a lot. And often those are the people who go no or low contact with their families. And the families always turn and say, you're the problem, you're the problem. And they refuse to see the dysfunction or repair the relationships or change the behaviors to make it functional again. So that's very common and more widely discussed nowadays in our generation. So if you didn't really, have a traditional ecclesia once you got to Israel, it sounds like, and so it sounds like you didn't go to traditional Christadelphian events either then, since you weren't really affiliated with the other ones, so like not Bible schools or camps or anything like that. You're kind of in your extra insular bubble compared to even the other ex-Christadelphians that I've spoken to. One other question I wanted to ask about more of the traditional Christadelphian questions was did you ever get baptized?
Yeah, when I came back, I came back,
To America?
yeah,
Okay.
like a refugee,
Yes.
and I had to rely on my family
You
remaining here, my grandparents and my
okay.
father. They were
Yes.
Christadelphian, and I had to knuckle under, and go to the I had to go to church, and they were good people. I mean, lots of Christadelphian people are good people. And I
Yes.
loved them and they loved me. And they said, our greatest hope is that you will, despite what you've been through, that you will be baptized one day. And then my grandparents were getting very old. And
Um,
I thought, this is a gift I can give them. And
yeah.
I can't pretend to have ever really have believed any of that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, I love them. This is one thing I can do to thank them for rescuing me.
Mm-hmm.
They were wonderful people. And so for them, for my grandparents, my
Mm-hmm.
paternal grandparents and my father, I was baptized as an undemanded Christadelphian,
Okay.
which
Okay.
is
Thank you for sharing.
where we were going at that time. And I thought I rationalized it like the nutty bunch in Israel by thinking, if God is indeed love, then I'm practicing what he wants me to do by
Mm-hmm.
doing this for people I love.
Yeah, and that doesn't harm anyone.
Well, it didn't. In hindsight, I can't say I regret having done it because there was nothing I would not have done for them. And I did not attack their faith and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
question it. I just went like so many of us do because it
Mm-hmm.
was expected of me. I
Mm-hmm.
would go and I would sit there, but I would be dying inside. I would think, "Oh my God,
This isn't for me, but I'm here because I'm expected to be here.
yeah, yeah." And I needed the support of the family I had left here.
Literally,
So
yeah,
they
for
they,
survival.
they put me through college. They helped me financially. They were the compensation I got for being with the Nutty Bunch in Israel. They healed
Mm-hmm.
me, they loved me, and I was very damaged when I got back. I
Mm-hmm.
would have night terrors and I would wake up screaming so loud that when the windows would be open on a mild
Oh no.
summer night, lights would go on up and down our
Yeah.
street because they would hear me screaming.
Yeah.
And
Wondering if I need to call the cops. Yep.
and when I left Israel, I was told you're going to be. It was totally forbidden to get out, to run, to try and
Of
escape.
course. You're not supposed to ever leave to begin with Christadelphians, let alone when you're in a family cult within the Christadelphians.
You're supposed to see what they see, and you're supposed to comply.
Yeah.
And they said you will either go to a jail, a mental institution, or you will go to a cemetery. That was what they told me
Mm-hmm.
when I tried to leave. And if it had not been for the few good people here who remained, that would have very likely happened.
Mm-hmm.
I would not have survived here. They worked
Yeah.
very hard to strip me of my ability to survive outside the group. And
Mm-hmm.
I felt an intense feeling of resentment that they would do that to me. But
I mean, that's a form of abuse. Make you reliant on them. Make it
yes,
so you can't get away or function without them.
yes, and I stopped believing that I could function independently.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on and I had a wonderful government career. I have a family. We have a house in the city and we have a farm down in the country. And
Mm-hmm.
everything I could have prayed for, I've gotten.
Yes.
I do have residual trauma, and I don't think it's ever going to
Mm-hmm.
leave, actually, to be honest. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that's not a failing. That's part of it being ingrained in your childhood, I believe.
I believe so too. Yeah. Yeah. And people have said, well, when are you going to get over that? It's been decades, you know?
Shut up.
So, so but my answer to that is if I was in a plane wreck, you know, would
Yeah.
you expect that that would not be carried through your entire
Yeah.
life? Would you
Yeah.
think that that would not carry with
Yeah.
you?
There's some things you don't get over. Yeah.
You work around it. You learn to live around it and to go on anyway. And that's the best way to overcome it. My mother is right now in the last chapter of her life. She
Mm-hmm.
is in a nursing home ward, and she's had several strokes. But up until like a year ago, she was hell on wheels. Nothing had changed. It was all,
Good.
yeah. She was
Okay.
walking around with an Uzi submachine gun in her 90s. She was walking around
In
with
her
an
90s,
Uzi.
she had a
She
machine
had
gun.
an Uzi submachine gun.
I'm saying she should not have been ever given any gun, even a pistol. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
oh, hell no. I mean, so,
Oh, she
I'm
should
not,
be on a list where you can't get a gun. Like, gun safety was made for people like her.
and yet it's sort of funny because I constantly am rejecting advances from any of them, and they don't ever stop. It doesn't ever stop.
Mm-hmm,
You're not
mm-hmm.
reading your Bible. Have you
They're
ever
not,
actually read
yeah,
your Bible? You don't
yeah.
understand. This is the end of days.
But you can't reason with them. I mean,
Yeah,
most of us ex-Christadelphians have a relative, if not most of our relatives who are still in it. We get those same questions, that same insistence of changing and believing their dogmas and taking up their behaviors. And they don't want to hear your reasoning. Why not? They can't fathom the change in you. You're just a bad person now if you don't believe it. Like the cognitive dissonance kicks in. It's like, we can't even believe that you would give this up. More shocking for them to not get it for your case. If you're ready, I'd like to talk a
sure,
little bit.
sure.
So I want to share what I've heard from you that you have shared like within our group before. And so I'm going to share that and just get confirmation from you that I'm sharing it accurately. So I'll take on speaking about it if you're okay for
Sure,
a
sure,
minute or two.
sure.
So I want to give some people some background about the abuse you went through in your childhood. So it was physical, emotional, and psychological trauma. You've compared it to the experience of the child in the book, A Boy Called It. So I'll share a short compilation of examples that you have previously shared. You mentioned that your mom removed the base of the broom with the bristles and used the rod as a tool to beat you and her other children until she couldn't breathe, and
Correct.
in order to vent her own feelings rather than, just as a, still extreme, but as a tool for punishing behavior in her kids.
Correct.
You've also mentioned being beaten with breadboards, wicker rug beaters, and
Yeah,
lamp cords.
yeah.
You and your siblings were attacked by adults who used hands, nails, and feet. These physical assaults included being shoved down the stairs, being kicked in the groin, being spit on, and being awoken by a physical assault by an adult on a child. The children were also accused of sex crimes and interrogated for supposed sexual violence that they were supposedly committing. You also mentioned being threatened with knives. There was one thing that I do not want to discuss further, but you have shared about. If anyone wanted to ask more, they can discuss that off the podcast because I'm too sensitive. But there was also animal abuse and animal cruelty to pets. Is that all correct and true from what you remember, Tim?
There was sexual abuse, and
There was.
and it began and then advanced through different stages. And
Against every child or specific children?
some got it way worse than others.
But did all experience sexual
No,
assault?
not all of them.
Okay.
Not everyone, but they had for some reason there was this strange fixation on sexual behavior. I don't know why, but they would interrogate you as to whether or not you were a homosexual. And you can imagine how that goes over for an 8-year-old or an 11-year-old. They would interrogate you as to whether you had molested your siblings, and they would interrogate you as to whether or not you had engaged in exhibitionism, meaning, did you go behind the house and pull down your pants for the neighbor children? And where that came from, I never fully figured out. But there was that sort of fixation on sexual behavior, and I don't know what that came out of, but you can imagine the trauma that it caused, and it's why some of my siblings and other people in the group are very damaged. I have, I should be shy about saying it, but I have intimacy issues, and how would you not?
Shocking after your childhood. You should be so able to have close relationships with people. Wow.
How would you not?
Shocking. Okay.
And they, as authority figures, they did so much damage that when I first came back to the United States, I didn't talk for half a year. They thought thought something was extremely wrong with me. And if a cop walked up to me, I'd wet my pants. I know that sounds incredible, but that's how much damage they did.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that again? And if you don't, I'm going to try to keep it general again. Can I ask, was it adult males assaulting underage females? Was it adult women assaulting underage men? Was it both? Was it homosexual assault? Can I just ask for clarification? Because I'm just curious.
It was sexual assault by males and females, adults, against children and against other adults. And I could not watch a documentary about the Branch Davidians because I saw the very same stuff portrayed in the documentary about David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, and I thought, oh my God, this is what we endured, and why there would be parallels, I can't quite figure out, but there's some common factor in that evolution of dysfunction, I guess is what you would call it. It was as if things that they intuitively knew were wrong, they were doing. And I thought, how can you intuitively know that your behavior is damnable and yet you launch into it anyway? It was.
While also saying that you're chosen of God. You're God's people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
On top of that.
Yes.
That adds a whole another layer.
Oh, yes. They would say, on the rare occasions when they would admit to the behavior, which was very rare, they would. I remember being told King David was the most beloved man of God, and he was guilty of adultery and murder.
So it excused their behavior, right?
Isn't that
God
incredible?
God still loved him, even though he murdered his rape victims' husbands. So we can do the same. God will love us.
You tell me. And how does that brain work?
It's quite a feat of logic, if we're going to call logic the word that they're using. Okay. And then you had even said that this abuse, all of these things that I shared, was so common that you would feel confused if a week passed without anyone in your family being physically beaten. Is that correct too?
I'm afraid that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would think something like I mentioned earlier, that they would have these rare epiphanies and say, oh my God, we've made a terrible mistake. What have we done? If the beatings stopped, we would be troubled because we think something bigger and more terrible is in the pipeline. And they were unpredictable. And well, I'll tell you, my mother had developed a criminal record over there.
Over there. I think it started in America. Come on, let's be honest.
Well,
what'd you do now?
Well, she was arrested 2 or 3 times for domestic violence, but most people turned a blind eye to it.
Mm.
When we were still in the United States and we were a year or two prior to going, one of the family members said she's deeply, deeply disturbed and we need to commit her. We need to do something to help her.
Wow.
And then nobody would back it up.
Was there abuse in the house before leaving for Israel then? Like domestic violence?
Yes, there was some.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It was all very carefully hidden. And I meant to make a point that the few people who were aware of portions of what we endured, they'd say, well, they're mentally ill. There's mental illness in the picture. She's mentally ill. But my problem with that in the moment and in all the years afterward is that if you're batshit crazy, eventually it's out in the street. It's not all hidden behind curtains and locked doors. Mm-hmm. So there was some of it got out there in the public eye, but most of it was very carefully kept quiet, and that's because they knew what they were doing was impermissible.
Mm-hmm. Somewhere in their psyche, they did. If they were hiding it, then they knew.
And then that confers a certain level of responsibility.
Accountability, I would hope, too, yeah.
Yeah. The real tragedy of it is that there are people who the story has never ended for them. They are still prisoners of their own delusion over there. Yeah. And some of these Christadelphians here, I see them as being trapped also. They cannot break away from it. It's a self-built prison. And I have a friend, and I know she does not believe the stuff that they're putting on her head, but she will not leave because it's what's familiar to her. It's what she knows, and there's no leaving, and she will die in that
circumstance. We'll see.
Yeah. It won't change.
One thing that shocks me about this story is supposedly all of these actions leading to becoming trapped in this nightmare in Israel was because they supposedly had a belief that Jesus was returning and returning soon. My instinct would be to believe that they would want to be more Christ-like, to be found ready when Jesus returned. If you really thought he could come any day, do you think he would want to see your children bruised and beaten and assaulted? And then they'd be like, okay, well, who did this to the children? What you do to them is like what you do to me. And then be like, oh yeah, we were torturing our children. Like, I truly don't understand how they could genuinely believe both things at once, that I am allowed to treat my family this way and that I am one of God's chosen people who will be found righteous at the return of Jesus.
Well, that's the question. I mean, that's the mystery of it.
It's like getting arrested for a DUI and then showing up to court drunk, like too drunk to walk. That's what it feels like.
I don't know. It's a testimonial to the gullibility of the human mind that people, would get on board with that kind of thinking. And I will add that in their world, God was an angry, vengeful God. Mm-hmm. He was not a God of love, and they were.
So it's more like the Old Testament God and not the New Testament Jesus vibes.
Yes. Well, they gave lip service to the stuff Christ taught, but they're in their thinking, I believe, they still held on to the idea that God is an angry, vengeful God, and you fail to do what you believe he wants from you, and he's going to burn you real good.
Yeah. There are, I think, in some ecclesias, there's still that idea too. Because it's a mixed bag, but there's always the thought of like, oh, well, Jesus came like a sheep and he's going to return as the lion kind of thing, like we talked earlier. Yeah. But I know even we're going to discuss on another episode one specific ecclesia, and on their social media, they were sharing photos of like Jesus returning violently. So it's definitely still out there, even in the wider Christadelphian culture that isn't quite where your family is at, we're just going to say.
Yeah.
So you've already discussed this a little bit, but I'll prompt you here so you can talk about it a little bit more. But what factors do you think were at play in creating and escalating this situation after your family moved? Because you've said part of it is the Christadelphian teachings. That was like the foundation it was based on. And then there was mental illness.
Yeah. It was a lack of intervention. People didn't, maybe they didn't fully comprehend what they were watching, but it's strange to me that somebody didn't figure out where it would all be headed and where it was going to, and say, okay, now we have to get involved here. We have to get the courts involved. We have to get the extended family involved.
Yeah, and agencies, all kinds of things,
But I do remember that they met with Christadelphians in our area and had lengthy discussions about what they believed before we went to Israel. Okay. And they talked to them, and those meetings were well attended. And nobody said, this is batshit crazy. You need to call it down. You need to stop. We need to get the guys with the white coats in here. Nobody did that.
What was the reaction among the ecclesia from what you remember? Like, what do you think other people were feeling or thinking about it? Was it just passive, or was it that they really thought they were wrong and speaking up about it? Like, what was going on?
Well, they disagreed with it, I remember, but they were very calm and very rational in saying, we think you're in scriptural error. This is not what's happening. This is not what's going to happen when you get over there.
And God will find you. Jesus knows where you are. Like, you don't have to go find him. He's got your number. It's fine. Well, God's supposed to be omnipotent. You're fine.
But I have had Christadelphians say to me, why are you blaming Christadelphianism? Why are you putting the blame on our sect? And it's because it came out of your sect.
That's where it started, literally with a Christadelphian teaching us, and with the Christadelphians always having these prophecies.
You enabled the delusion, and when you saw it coalescing, you did not get in there and get in the way. And when we came back one by one, nobody said, well, what was it like? How awful was it over there? What, tell us more. They didn't want to know.
Do you think that they didn't want to know because they kind of knew?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think they knew.
They'd rather you just swept it under the rug politely and didn't bring it up?
They knew, but they didn't want to be told. They guessed what had happened there, and there was enough information was out there.
Did your dad ever try to advocate for you or push for action or change or anything, whether it was within the ecclesia or anything for you or your siblings?
My father was in a car wreck 2 years before I was born and had severe brain damage. So he could not be an effective advocate. He, in fact, lived with my paternal grandparents.
Okay, because of his disability then.
The three of them wrote letters, and they tried to contact people in Israel, and they tried to write to the embassy, and none of that.
Yeah, I was thinking the embassy should come in at that point.
Yeah. Well, there's so much of that over there that they probably can't help everybody. And you know how letters go. Often they're not effective. And they were devastated by it, naturally. And especially with us being dragged out of the country without him knowing and without his consent.
So it sounds like they did try to advocate for you a little bit. And not only did their ecclesia shut you down, but shut the efforts of your family down and did not lend support that could have helped others too in that situation. Because if they were aware of what was going on with you, it again becomes unconscionable. I'm not sure, I'm not pronouncing that right, but to allow it to continue for the other siblings and people there that are there without their consent, going through very harmful things. That feels again like turning a blind eye, which is like the total opposite of the Good Samaritan parable, right? Like that's in the Bible that they're preaching about all the time, but are they actually helping even within their own, membership of Christadelphians, people like you that were going through that. Sounds like they chose not to intentionally, from what you're sharing.
That's what I believe. I also
Okay.
believe that for many decades, our American society has been gradually atomizing, if that's the right word, where you don't get involved in other people's lives
Yeah,
or
individualism is a big
yeah,
value here and splintering
yeah.
a lot of our community and society, yes.
Yeah, we had belonged to one ecclesia. When, as I said, when I came back, I was in an unamended ecclesia,
Yes,
but we've
yeah.
been in the amended ecclesia for decades. But we
Hmm.
didn't go into other people's homes, and they didn't welcome us into them. Just I don't know
Hmm.
what that means about American society, but to me, it's probably that there's sufficient emphasis on individuality
Hmm.
and and a process of atomization occurring so that we don't connect with other people in ways that
Hmm.
are beneficial and protective the way they should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, community is incredibly valuable, and that's one of the weakest things in American culture, it seems like lately. So, one thing that you've brought up previously, just in general conversations and a little bit today, was you mentioned how you felt when you learned about the murder suicides at Jonestown. Do you want to share why that was so impactful for you? And again, if you don't want to, you can just let me know.
I was in a difficult point in my life, and I was afraid that the group in Israel might actually manage to have a group suicide. I was worried that might happen. And the degree of fanaticism that they evidenced in Jonestown and Waco, to me, it all smelled very familiar. And it triggered me where it would trigger me into deep depression that would last for a week or two until I'd
Hmm.
pull out of it. But that kind of fanaticism, there's almost a tangible feeling of being threatened by it because it's too close to what you've been through, I think.
Yeah, you could see so many of the similarities was the main issue, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, what I heard David Koresh and Jim Jones saying was very similar to what I had been hearing in Israel, you know?
Was there anything specifically that you remember that was similar?
Well, that everything was interpreted through the religious belief system. And like when some of us in Israel began talking about trying to get out, for some reason, we went to see the movie Poseidon Adventure. You ever seen that movie, Poseidon
No.
Adventure? It's about a
Okay.
sinking ship and people trying to get out of it.
Oh God.
And so I thought, well, yeah, we're on a sinking boat. And but
Hmm.
the adults in the group, their reaction to it was, now see, you must never look back. You must never turn
Oh,
back.
that's the lesson.
You must not try to return down the path you traveled.
That's wild to hear about such different takeaways from that same material that you were seeing.
But everything,
Everything
it,
was
it
like
all
that. Yeah.
it all was interpreted in that way, and
It always
the
had to
message the
reinforce
message
it.
was don't try and get away.
That's terrifying. Jesus.
So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense then. You had mentioned the gas thing. Was there
yeah.
an attempt?
Well, there were several. On one occasion, my mother turned on the gas in a house we were living in Rosh Pina, and stepfather got up and turned the gas off.
Okay.
And
Was
on
it while
another,
you were sleeping or
yeah,
something?
we were all in the house, and she had decided to end it all. And then we had a Peugeot wagon. It's a station wagon that they built back in France back in that time.
Okay.
And she tried to drive it off a mountain on the highway coming down to the Jordan Valley from the city of Safad. And
With
she,
all the kids
with
in the
all
car,
of
I
her
assume.
children, with all of her
Hmm.
children sitting in the
Hmm.
car. And
Okay.
if my stepfather had not been in the car, she'd have driven it off of the cliff.
Yeah, I would never be able to get over that personally. Um, keep going. It looks like you have another story.
Well, on another occasion, we were in the Jordan Valley and she decided it was, to end it all. And so she tried to drive the same Peugeot wagon. We were just outside a kibbutz called Kfar Bloom. and she
Mm-hmm.
tried to drive it into the back of a tractor pulling a produce wagon. She tried to
Oh,
ram the car at a high
death by
speed.
apples. Okay. Sorry, I gotta make a joke. That's all I can do. This is a nightmare. But I am here. I am here to listen. Yeah,
Unimaginable.
all of those are a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
honestly, let me say seriously, I am sorry you went through all of that. I
oh well,
am.
thank you. I survived it. That's
You
the
did.
happy ending.
That's
I
that's
just
worth a trophy. Have your
it's
family make you a little trophy. I survived my childhood. Yeah.
and I can laugh now most of the time. The funny thing is
Yeah.
that like just 3 years ago, she called here and left
Oh,
messages on the phone, and just the sound of her voice on the message
yeah.
machine, I was like
Yeah.
shaking all over for
Triggering.
4 days. I thought this is so stupid. I mean, she's
No, that makes
thousands of
sense.
miles away
But she is linked to that trauma.
and doesn't see it at all. Doesn't see it.
What? Why did she call?
She knows she's near the end of her life and she wants to reconcile. And I actually was stupid enough the family members were trying to get hold of me and talk to me because she'd had a stroke back then. And
Okay.
she was trying frantically to get hold of me to make her peace with me. And I said, I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to talk to you people. Please don't come around. Don't write. Don't phone. Don't email. I
Yeah.
can't deal with it. And so they bothered me. And finally, I said, okay, there's only one way I might entertain communicating with her. I want her to ask to be forgiven for the terrible things she did to people and to acknowledge what she did to other people. And
Mm.
so 2, 3 weeks went by, and somebody sent me a letter, and it said, we spoke to her, and her
Mm-hmm.
response was, I have done nothing that needs to be forgiven.
Mm-hmm. I was waiting for that. Classic narcissist. Never
And
met the lady. I'm just saying I see the pattern of behavior that is textbook.
I think it's very common. I think you'll
Unfortunately.
find it all over. And I said, well, I'm sorry I made the offer to begin with. I'm not sure I would have carried through on it, but I'm actually relieved because I regret even offering an
Yeah.
opportunity.
You didn't even want to. You're coerced even into offering that potential olive branch.
Yeah, and in her mind, I have no doubt everything is okay. And, you know,
Yeah.
King
There's
David was loved above all men. He was loved. When he was an adulterer and a murderer, and he was loved above all men. I'm sure she believes in
mm-hmm.
her heart that that
Mm-hmm.
is her absolution, and the
Mm-hmm.
wreckage all around her. Well, just don't look over there. Just don't pay any attention to that. And
Yeah.
I do not believe she will live much longer. And I cannot say I will feel relief when she is gone, but sadly, I will feel nothing. And I don't rebuke myself for
No.
that. I really don't. I don't.
For you, there's not much to mourn. One thing I've heard is that the absence hurts as much as, the presence had been. So if you had a really strong relationship with someone, you're going to feel a strong sense of loss. If you had a, very small relationship with them and less positive, history, you're going to have less of that response. The closer someone is to you, the harder it's going to be. Like when I lose my animals, I'm going to be devastated. Let's be honest. This podcast is going to need a break. My babies. But if it's like a stranger, like a celebrity that I don't know their name, and someone's like, "Oh, so and so died," I'll be like, "Okay, like, that's not going to impact my day." Just So I feel like that's totally valid, even though they are your blood family. It's okay when they never acted like blood family, never tried to be that positive person in your life. They didn't do anything worth mourning. Now the loss of it in your
No.
life. So I
Well,
think that's okay.
I will have a small amount of regret, maybe for her, that she invested her life in that.
Yeah, over 60 years at least.
Yeah.
Into
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah.
Christadelphian dogma
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
upending her life and all of that
And
to
all of that.
supposedly pursue, being united with Jesus.
Yeah. imagine the energy and the time. And she would sit there and read her Bible for hours. And she wrote a second or third Bible inside the Bible because she'd written all in
Oh,
the
the notes.
margins and
Yeah, the wide
the
margin notes.
the
Yeah.
highlighting and the underlining.
This means Jesus is going to come under this verse. Let me highlight it. This means he's coming. Yes.
Now it's sad because think of what she could have done with that time and
Yes.
energy. I cannot imagine abdicating my obligations to my children and my loved ones
Mm-hmm.
and filling it up with that sort of chicken shit. I just cannot. And
Mm-hmm.
if you've done that, you've gotten lost somewhere.
You missed the main messages. Yeah.
Yeah,
You missed the point of your life.
yeah. And but how would she not figure that out?
She had to have packed away any tinge of awareness, had to shove it in a closet. Any feeling of regret and doubt had to be knocked down, I'm sure. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I'm sure she had small nagging feelings that this isn't right or I'm doing something wrong and just couldn't humble herself enough to change anything.
Very sad. Very.
One question I want to ask as well. Did you feel pressured by whether Christadelphians or family to forgive and forget?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, you're supposed to write it off and you're supposed to move beyond it. And even my father and my grandparents said you need to move beyond it and try to forgive her. And
Oh, okay.
to be
Wow.
honest with you, I will not forget it because it's
Well,
not
no.
possible. And
Yeah.
I don't forgive it either. I know maybe I should try to, but I know how incredibly compromised my life was as a result of enduring all of that. And I don't wish anybody harm. I don't wish anybody death, even.
Mm-hmm.
It will never be forgotten. And there's no burden to forgive, which is why I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned to you that that might be a good title for our,
That as well, yeah.
no burden to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that cannot be forgiven. And what you do is you move on and go forward anyway.
Yeah,
And
you can still heal without
yeah,
that,
yeah,
action.
yeah.
It's fine. I accept that that is a personal choice. I won't judge that. I ask partially just because talking to people that experience trauma in the Christadelphian community, it seems like generally people are told just forgive and forget and don't ever ask for accountability. Don't ask for action. Don't ask for those things. And we will not help facilitate that because I think those things could help initiate that forgiving and forgetting. If they were like, hey, we want to help you get therapy. Hey, we want to help put that person in prison and have consequences for what they did. I think seeing action, and even from my personal experiences, having people take action on my part when I reported things to the police and stuff, that was kind of healing. And I think that helped a lot for me, but it seems like so many victims in the Christadelphian community do not get that. And there's no one really trying to facilitate that, historically. So that's
Yeah.
why I was curious your thoughts on it, because it sounds like there was no one trying to fight for justice for you, to give you a voice, any of those things when you were younger. It was just move on. Don't worry about it. Don't talk about it. Get over it. Just brushing it aside instead of acknowledging it, validating it, and taking action as a result of that.
No, there was none of that. It would have helped me a great deal to have had an advocate, to have had some legal recourse. And right now, they turn a blind eye to the wreckage that came out of it, and it's easier for them maybe to turn a blind eye to it. But that would have helped me a great deal. And I joined a cult recovery group, which meets by Zoom, and it meets once a month on the eastern coast of the United States. There's also a group in Britain and one in Australia.
Oh, wow. Okay. We'll have to link those if you can share those with me.
And that's been very helpful. And in fact, they met here in my home for like 2 years. We met here in my home. And it was so amazing how similar many of the stories were.
Hmm.
And it's kind of hard to hook together people who've come out of what we've come out of. It's
Hmm.
kind of difficult to find them and network with them and connect them to
Yeah.
each other. The one
Yeah.
meeting we had like 14, 15 people showed up, and I was
Wow.
just shocked. So I think it
You
does
weren't
happen.
alone though. Yeah.
Yeah, they were lovely people, and believe it or not, there were one or two groups that were scarier even than our group.
Oh
There-
God. Oh
there's a group.
God.
Can I mention a group? No, I better not. There were one or two I thought, wow, I thought I was went through a horrible ordeal.
Yes. Jeez.
I thought, what the heck? This makes this makes Jonestown look like any town USA,
Yeah. Yeah, it was just a family
So-
picnic. So we were disconnected, but we're recording again now. So we're gonna pick right up again. So you had mentioned that your sister had passed away. Could you tell me what happened there?
Well, I was never completely clear what happened because I had managed to get out of Israel and had come back here and tried to restart my life here. And she died, and then for reasons that are clear only to the people over there,
Mm-hmm.
they did not tell me for 5 years that she was dead. Yeah,
5. Wow.
almost 5 years, and she was a Down syndrome child. So
Oh
you
no.
could not write or call and have a
Oh
conversation.
yeah, she had struggles
Yeah,
because of that disability. Okay.
yeah, and so they had reasons afterward why they had done that.
So there was some reason why they did that, you think?
Well, she was a half sister by the second marriage, and
Okay.
my stepfather had also fled Israel. I believe he fled 2 years after I left, and was the story, that they did not want him to know about his daughter dying because they were afraid he would attempt to come back over to Israel, or that he would otherwise make things ugly happen.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was not a very plausible response as to them hiding the information from me. That's not the kind of information that should be hidden from anybody. But
Yeah, that makes it all the more suspicious.
yes, and I was told by a person associated with our family over there that she was a victim of abuse and that was connected to her death. Now, I don't know how reliable that information may have been. Uh, the source was close enough to be aware of things going on there,
Yeah.
but they said that they had not told me because they were afraid I would convey the information to him. And when he relocated back here, he moved to Santa Monica, California.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them, one of my sisters and my brother, were visiting the United States and called me and said they needed to have lunch with me one day. And I was alarmed because I thought that sounded very strange.
Mm-hmm.
They were not regularly coming through town and asking to take
Yeah.
me to lunch. And I thought that was something was wrong. And I thought, well, somebody must be very ill. Maybe somebody has cancer or somebody needs help getting out of Israel.
Yeah.
And then they took me to a crowded restaurant, naturally,
Mm-hmm.
because they were afraid I would act out, that I would make a scene about it. And they said, your sister's dead. And that was the sort of bizarre, stupid, ugly stuff that was always happening,
Mm-hmm.
and it never ended until I finally made up my mind I was not going to have contact with them. I just needed to
Yeah.
break it off.
And
It's
that's
just,
very unfortunate for your sister because I'm sure it would have made it harder to escape than being disabled on top of being a victim of all of the abuse through the years.
well, she had
Yeah.
no chance, really. I tried to
Yeah.
get my stepfather's family involved, to try to get them to work on getting some
Yeah,
of
your
them
half
out.
siblings. Yeah, because it was different family if you got out through your dad's side. Yeah.
Yes, and he had relatives living on the other side of the river from where we live now, and so I was trying to write them and call them and ask them if they could do something, but it was a very intimidating situation for them. So they did not involve themselves. And my stepfather, he came back. One thing that this thing did, this whole experiment or whatever happened to us, was that we all landed on our asses financially.
Mm-hmm.
So my stepfather was working as a waiter in a restaurant in Santa Monica, and there was no way he could even afford a plane ticket to go over and visit his children, much less pay for a lawyer. He couldn't do anything for them.
That makes sense. Okay. And I do know that Christadelphians have a reputation for being pacifists who do not believe in war or violence. Do you want to offer any commentary on that from your experiences?
Well, my experience was that they reinvent reality and reinvent scripture and reinvent what's expected of them as Christian believers according to their circumstances and what they want to do. And after we got there and Jesus did not reveal himself to our group, then what they decided was they were going to highlight the whole business about, this is an ark of safety, and in the end times, Israel will be a sanctuary for true believers. And they worked that angle and tried to lure additional people over there. And they also would fixate on occasion on some new luminary in Israel, some politician. Menachem Begin was one. Yitzhak Sharon was one. What was his name? Abba Eban or something. These different Israeli leaders, they would fixate on them as possibly being this Messiah. And then they would die one after the other, and they would obviously have been mistaken. So they would eventually end up focusing on some new individual and saying, well, maybe that's Christ. Maybe that's Christ about to reveal himself. Now, of course, none of these people were Messiah material, and no Messiah revealed himself. And what they believed was delusional, crazy nonsense. But modern day Christadelphians, from what I can see, is they simply make a new prediction, a new estimated time of arrival.
Yeah, but generally focusing on dates more than people, like your group did.
My bunch was big on numerology, if you know what that is, that certain dates were likely dates when it would happen. Okay. And they got into stuff like that. But that's not uncommon, I think, for Christadelphians. They were big into alternative medicine, diet and nutrition, vitamin pills, and natural cures. And they would go off on these different tangents. But basically, it was overwhelmingly the religion stuff that they lived and they breathed. It was everything. Their whole existence was defined by their obsessive compulsive attraction to this dogma, this religious dogma.
Okay. So let's move into what led up to you leaving the Christadelphians. So I'll summarize some of what we already discussed, and if you want, you can add something in if you think I missed something. So you had mentioned that you had used a ham radio to contact your dad to buy you a plane ticket to escape Israel. Your family, it sounds like, tried to sabotage you leaving by dumping out your suitcases and trying to prevent you from getting in the taxi to the airport.
Right.
You then went home to your dad and paternal grandparents and attended the unamended Christadelphian ecclesia.
Initially, I was back in the amended ecclesia that we'd originally left. And they had zero interest in hearing about any of it. And I did not go in blaming them, though I think there was plenty of blame to go around. And then the group in the unamended group that we ended up moving into, they had no interest in hearing about it. I don't think they were worried that any blame might attach to them. But it was not something they were interested in learning about. And certainly part of it was that I was upfront about describing some of the stuff that had happened. And as I mentioned to you, their response was, this is not the people that we knew. These are
Mm,
not the people we were familiar with. And some of them were skeptical. They thought I was sitting there concocting stories about all this god awful stuff. In a way, I don't blame them.
mm-hmm.
Uh, the amended church, that was where they should have made a strong intervention and attempted to head it all off before it got out of control.
And they would
And
have had a little more resources because that is part of the larger group of Christadelphians where they could have called on potentially more support from other ecclesias or partner organizations that the Christadelphians have made. And they directly knew these people. So it does seem like it would have been appropriate for them to have been more involved
yeah,
before, during, or after.
yes, and in that amended ecclesia, we were related to a third of the people. In
Yeah.
some way, we had a blood connection to
Hmm.
about a third of the members of it,
That's
and
very common. Yeah.
they just passively did nothing. It was very odd,
That's
very
very
odd.
sad. Very sad. It's sad that the Christadelphians couldn't have tried to help facilitate getting some of those children out. And even I feel like there's so many Christadelphian families that could have been available to foster these kids and help pay for tickets to get them out. You know, I remember they always had like a brown envelope fund for donations that they would send all the time to different Christadelphian organizations and charities. Um, and it's so sad that there was a need among your Christadelphian family of you kids, and nothing was able to help you guys. Nothing was there.
Nothing, no. And they had a patriarch, a sort of an alpha male in the amended church.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to pretty much have full authority in that church.
Mm-hmm.
And amazingly, for some unknown reason, he did not intervene, did
Mm-hmm.
not have opinions about any of it. And I was flabbergasted because I thought maybe he was happy to see some people leaving. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he was okay with getting rid of some of these people.
Yeah.
But it was not like him at all to stand by in an idle way and watch all of that unfold and not come down feet first on how inappropriate and stupid that it was. It was very odd. So
Mm-hmm.
now he's dead, so I can't ask him.
Yeah.
It's
I
too
think
late.
a lot of the opportunity for closure is really
Yeah,
past now. It
yeah.
is something that's going to be your burden to live with, finding peace, unfortunately.
I did not let it stop my life. I told myself, live your life in spite of it,
Mm-hmm.
despite them. Even and sometimes that was all I
That's
had.
okay.
Sometimes that's all I had was just, God damn, you're not going to kill me. You are not going to trash my
If
life.
that's what keeps you going, you know what? If that gets you up, go for it. Another day. Another day out of spite.
Yeah, if that's what you have to do, then do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put one foot in front of the other just for spite. That's a good step. That's a step in the right direction. So you mentioned that later on when you were attending the meeting after returning to America, you were kind of sitting there more out of obligation than the fact that you wanted to be there and enjoyed the services. So what reasons were keeping you in the meeting, and how long were you still attending after getting back from Israel?
Well, I don't think I ever really enjoyed going to church. If there was joy in there, I didn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
I found the music horrible. It was, I,
You didn't
I,
like singing a cappella to a piano every week?
I found after 10 minutes, I wasn't paying attention anymore.
Oh, you mean
I
like the
was,
exhortation?
yeah, I was just sitting there meditating.
You're like zoned out.
Yeah, it was so deadly boring and stale that I would not be paying attention anymore. And after after a number of years, I said to myself, you know, why are you here? And I felt that I could not leave until my grandparents and my father died, and I just felt trapped.
Yeah, just to make them happy.
And I stayed there pretty much around the time that I was reaching my breaking point and knew I had to get out. I was around the time that they began dying very quickly. My grandfather died, and then my grandmother died, and then 2 years later my father died, and
Wow.
I was sitting there thinking, I don't need to come anymore. If
Yeah.
you got baptized out of love for them, then you did what you could to bring them happiness, and there's no reason to remain here.
Okay. So when did you stop attending then?
Well, it's been about 17, 18 years since I last went to the unamended meeting, but they excommunicated me.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
well, I married outside of their faith.
Okay. Tale as old as time in the Christadelphians.
Well, the odd thing was that other people in that unamended ecclesia had also found spouses outside of the ecclesia, and they did
Hmm.
nothing. They did nothing to them at all. They did.
The
They did.
hypocrisy.
They did nothing to them at all. And here,
Huh.
understanding that, I mean, I was halfway out the door by then already
Yeah.
anyway, but it had nothing to do with marrying outside of the ecclesia.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was her fault or anything.
No, I, I found that I think they were sort of looking for a reason to edge me out. And
Mm-hmm.
when I called them down on it and said, other people have married outside of the truth, quote, the truth,
Yes,
unquote.
yeah.
They weren't even having the emblems removed from them for even a
Huh.
week, not even for one Sunday.
Yeah.
And so they very quickly reshuffled the deck and said, "Well, your attendance has been very poor, so
Ah,
we're excommunicating you
that's
for
the
that."
real reason now. We're just gonna change the reason just so we can get you out.
And they did, but I don't think it was because they were uncomfortable with what happened in Israel, because I didn't really put any guilt on the unamended chapel for that
Yeah.
reason. They had gone through a period where they were doing it to a number of different people, and they would like withdraw communion for a year or withdraw communion for 6 months, and so I believe they were looking for a reason to make more examples. And what they said is what they always say: we have to do this because you've made a poor example for the young people.
Oh, I have heard that before, yeah.
And it's such baloney, because the young people, they couldn't care less what you do.
Or they're horrified and like, oh my gosh, this church group, this ecclesia is a lot. Maybe I should leave. Because they keep punishing all the adults to try to keep them in line.
Oh, yeah, they're thinking, how soon can I get out of here too?
Right?
So,
That's interesting. That sounds like they were looking to punish their own members. I don't usually hear that here.
well, occasionally I would pose questions that I think made them uncomfortable. And I was not a favored member. In all these churches, there
Yeah.
are little cliques of people who
Yep.
are favored and
Yep.
people who are not. And I
Yeah.
was sort of a stray.
Me
And then,
too.
and so after, while my grandparents were alive and my father, I think that kept me safe. And
It's like a
then,
little shelter over you. Their influence is still there.
yes, the safest ones are the ones who have family members around them.
Yeah, but the less family you had, the less safety net you had there.
100% correct.
Yeah.
So, and after a while, it was like, oh God, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm not pretending that it wasn't very painful.
Well, it is sad that, yeah, they pushed you out. It wasn't a walking out, really.
Yeah. Well, I thought that I had the sympathy vote because of what I've been through, but apparently not.
No.
So,
Hmm.
and I have only been back one or two times for funerals.
Yep.
And on those rare occasions, even after 10, 15 minutes, I'm itching all over to get out.
Yeah.
I don't want to be there. It feels uncomfortable, and it brings back all of the loathing that I felt while I was in there at the end. We know what they believe they have, but it's not really worth having. That sounds terrible. Sounds like I'm making fun of their faith.
Yeah, they really believe it, but I think the perspective on what they have changes dramatically once you leave and you think about things differently and see things differently for sure.
Yeah. I just finished taking care of one of the local Christadelphians who died. And for 3 years, I have been her caregiver and her power of attorney
Oh,
and
wow.
the executor of her will.
Hmm.
And I did that after making it clear that there would not be any discussion of religion, but they abandoned her completely.
Oh.
I was mystified by the fact that here she was, one of their members, and they were unhappy with her, but
Hmm.
they vanished.
Yeah, that is sad, but I think a lot of listeners will relate because most of us lose the community, whether totally or just mostly. You lose generally at least someone in your life when you leave. And so a lot of us have felt what that feels like when you see that it can be very quickly taken away, the community there. Um,
Yeah,
it's easy to lose, unfortunately.
yeah, and she did not have much in the way of community. She ended up joining the Dawn Fellowship, and there was not a local ecclesia
Okay.
for the Dawn Fellowship, so she ended up being, what do they call it?
In
Near,
isolation.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
That's what they call it. And they would occasionally, someone from the Dawn membership would come through town and break bread with her. But I thought, if that's the best that the religion can do, it's not worth having. It's not worth all of the other baggage that you end up carrying because it compromised the quality of her life very
Mm-hmm.
greatly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what she was alone in her old age, and she ended up with stage 5 kidney failure. And we had gone out of town, and she died alone, which was pretty awful. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
nobody was there to, and
It is
there
sad.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's if that's the measure of their
Of their
Christian,
love.
yeah,
Yeah.
of their
And their
love. Yeah,
Christian values. Yeah.
yeah. It's not just a sad commentary on them.
Yeah, I do believe actions speak louder than words. So I think it's an interesting example of actions within at least one meeting to see that. I like to ask abuse victims just to comment on this specifically, but a lot of people assume that people leave because of abuse if they suffered abuse. Would you say that that was the only reason you left, or also because of doctrine and culture and other things like that?
All of it
Yeah.
in total. I
Mm,
just thought it
yeah.
is not worth the baggage. It is
Hmm.
not worth the burden you end up carrying to be connected to that
Yeah,
doctrine
to that group.
and some of those horrible people. And after a while, the weight of it
Yeah, it's
outweighs
too
any
much.
joy or goodness or,
Yeah, or benefit to you.
yeah.
I appreciate you being honest.
Well, even now, even in my old age, because I'm in my 60s now, I sometimes am bitter about it, but most of the time we live our life and I don't think about them, and I'm happy for that.
Well, I'm glad for that. Being able to have a day where you don't think about them is certainly sounds like a blessing for you, because it definitely sounds like it was decades of bad memories. So I hope that you've had decades of good memories to replace that.
I've had a good life anyway, and there is something that I've heard of that one or two people told me helped them overcome religious trauma, and that
Hmm.
is ketamine therapy. I've never explored it, but I've had one or two people tell me they found it helpful.
I have heard that as well, for general trauma, not specifically that, but I could see that. And it sounds like there's being more research on it. But of course, there's still going to be limitations with legal things and access and funding and all that sort of thing. So it could be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah.
Um, what would you say to someone as like words of support or advice for a listener who still is around an abusive Christadelphian relative?
I would say that When I got back here from Israel, I almost burned my bridges a few times. And you need to make your departure when you're in a good position to do it and not rush to discard whatever living arrangement you're in, because you may need that support system for a while. But you'll know at a certain point when you need to cut your ties and make a clean getaway. And some people don't do that carefully, and then they can have more suffering because they pay a price for cutting and running. So even though my faith was pretty much dissolving and or gone, there were years in which I said to myself, even in Israel, bide your time, things will change, and you sit tight until the right moment shows up. And that's what I did.
Okay.
And I think it's important to know when to do that and when to be still.
Yeah, when to show some patience and to not make rash decisions, it sounds like, as part of that. Yeah.
And it's hard. It's very hard.
Of course. And so now it sounds like you are not particularly religious, but do you want to share any other groups that you have joined or explored over the years?
We have a Methodist church about a block and a half away.
Yes.
And it's very big. It's like a cathedral. And so they do cultural stuff and social stuff. And so we got superficially connected into it that way. And we've met nice people there. And we were happy with the cultural and social connection that we have to it. But I also have found, to my disappointment, a lot of the same petty politicking and in
yeah.
the same infighting.
They have all the same thorns in their sides. Huh?
Yeah, and it's not pretty. And in the beginning, you don't detect all of that, and then after a year or two, you start to pick up on it. And nothing like what we went through. But they asked my sons and I to join the United Methodist Men's Group and stuff, and work for the church and cut the lawn and make repairs in the boiler room. And I have said, I don't need places to work. I don't need any new venues in which to do labor.
So it sounds like you haven't found a lot of strong community.
No, and I don't believe we will. I don't believe it's going to happen. And I grieve that. We have a few very extended family members that we have some contact with. And in fact, 2 of them are coming for Thanksgiving.
And you have your own family now with having gotten married and having kids and grandkids too now, right?
Yes. So there's that. And my impression is that this is normal for American society today.
Yeah, it's fairly common. Our cities aren't designed for community. Our neighborhood doesn't even have sidewalks. Like, you can't easily meet people walking around, and we don't have like the pub culture that other places have. All of that kind of stuff, where you have places where people naturally gather and like sit in town centers and things. We're just not designed to be connected in our culture, which is really odd when you start learning about other cultures and seeing it, because I think it has impacts not having that in America.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And I mean, there are lots of nice people out there, but a lot of them, they don't want to be connected to you.
Some don't. It was even in the cultures. It may teach people to take more pride in working more hours as opposed to connecting with people. Things like that. The values can also be different, and you get less time. So I feel like the biggest thing for me and my generation is so many people are working multiple jobs and trying to handle raising kids completely on their own without a lot of family support and things like that. And so you try to get together with someone, it's just hard to get the time. And when you may only get 2 weeks vacation, you don't have a lot of extra time.
No.
So it becomes a challenge, and people commuting long distances, all that kind of stuff. It's very difficult to have the energy and time to spare to getting together with people when it's not easy, when they're not right around the corner from your house.
Yeah, it's a different world. When I was a boy, you would have people related to you living within half a mile of you. I mean, they
Yeah,
were
that's what
just
it felt
there.
like too, especially being in the Christadelphians, because everyone intentionally lived near the ecclesia. So I
Yeah.
would see my family all the time growing up, and we would be at each other's houses constantly, all kinds of holidays, and just, it's a Friday night, let's get together and watch a movie. It was interesting how in my family growing up, there was a lot of sense of community, whether you enjoyed that community or not, it was there.
Yeah.
And, everyone was within like half an hour of each other. So it is interesting now to no one had to live near an ecclesia, so everyone spread out, and all that was
Yeah.
gone. So there can be some benefits, sure, if things are good and you're around people with good personalities and things. But yeah, there's some things where if you get into the general American culture, it's not developed towards intimacy, I don't think, and community. So one of the last questions I always like to ask guests is if you have any resources that you would recommend to someone who's leaving or has left. I know you mentioned the support group, so if you want to share that link with me or information with me, I'll share that in the show notes. Is there anything else that you found helpful that you want to mention, or that comes to mind?
Well, a good therapist would probably help many people.
Yeah.
And the lady who runs the cult recovery Zoom group, she's been sort of an informal therapist for me.
Mm-hmm.
And she's always been there when I needed counseling. It's not the wrong word, but she's sort of been
Yeah, someone you could reach out to
somebody there I
when
can reach
things
out
come
to.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important to have that. And it's important, I think, if you can, bond with a fellow defector. And
Yeah.
it's one reason I ended up helping this one lady who also
Mm-hmm.
defected, because we could commiserate and support each other. And she was very kind about doing little stuff so that she was sort of
Yeah.
kind of a made up family member. And we called her Aunt Stephanie. And, uh, and so if you leave, you need to sort of replicate that family um, model for your
Yeah.
children so they don't feel alone and that they feel there are people around them. And even if you're calling a neighbor, aunt or something, it creates that for them. And
Mm-hmm.
so you work with them, whatever material you're left with. And my kids seem to be well adjusted and happy. And you have to remember that you are not what you come from. And you have to remind yourself, because here's a secret I probably should not share, but parenting can be very hard. And so I would find myself at the threshold of, okay, I'm really angry now, so I'm going to punch somebody in the head. You can't do that. You can't go there. You have to,
Good
you
parenting
have,
tip.
yeah, you have to disconnect from that, or you keep the whole pattern going.
Yeah, you have to choose to be different than your parent.
Absolutely. You have to say that was dysfunctional and ugly, and that tradition dies with me. And
Yeah.
I have never laid a hand on any of my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never even done to the dog the kind of stuff that was done
And
to
I
us.
hate that that's a saying because I love my dog like my child's. I'm like, why would you ever do that?
Well, the dog is more pampered than my children.
Right.
But it's good. Our capacity to heal is great.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be patient in letting all of that stuff heal.
I'm glad to hear that you've healed as much as you have. I know that there are still some things that will remain difficult to talk about and some feelings that are still going to be strong because of what you went through. And that's totally understandable. Was there anything else that you want to say to offer hope and any last words to share with listeners that you could share from your perspective as someone with all this lived experience?
It sounds hokey. I would reaffirm that life is beautiful and good. And if your experiences are something different than that, then you wait for things to change and work to make change happen.
Mm-hmm, to get out of that environment or change who you're around people wise, things like that.
Yeah. even if you have to wait or even if you do it incrementally, everything in life is fluid and you are not trapped permanently anywhere in your life.
And I think sometimes people don't realize they have as much agency as they do. So I think sometimes you have to remember that you're allowed to take control of your life. You know, as long as you're over 18, you're able to make decisions for yourself, even if it feels like you can't.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, then I guess that brings us to the end of your interview today.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Xenia, and I thank you for your work. I thank you. It's very important, and I'm grateful to have a chance to tell my story, and I'm grateful for the venue you've created for people to relate what they went through, and I just feel very grateful to you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that. I appreciate that you reached out asking to be on to share your story. This podcast literally would not be happening without all of the listeners who reach out, who offer to share their story with the world. And hopefully people can connect and get something out of it, feel a little bit more part of a community, hear stories of people going through hard things and making hard decisions and still healing and keep going anyways. So I hope that this has been a good resource for people. So thanks again for being a part of our community. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for sharing a lot of difficult things today. I know that was a challenge, and I hope it's not too triggering for you, having gone through this experience.
No, it's okay.
Good. All right. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. That's all for today's episode. So I hope everyone's feeling inspired to live your truth, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Xenia.
Thank you to everyone who has helped make this episode of the podcast possible. Today's episode was edited by me, Xenia. I'd also like to thank Al Kroons for creating our intro music and the ex-Christadelphians that submitted audio for the intro music. If you'd like to join our community, you can find us at the group for ex-Christadelphians on Facebook. You can also follow our social media on Facebook and Instagram at Life After Leaving Podcast. If you'd like to come on the podcast, reach out to me at lifeafterleavingpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving a rating and review or sharing this podcast with a friend. That's all for today. Thanks, and see you next time.